Okay, well, thanks everyone for tuning in. So for you guys in Melbourne, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, but for me, I'm very fortunate to be over in Hollywood, California right now for business, hence a slightly different time zone for me. It's a real pleasure to be able to chat to everyone today. And then it's an interesting story that I'm hoping to share with you, and I'll talk you through a few things about how to take the reins of your business. I came to riding horses as an adult, but throughout my whole career, I've been involved in leadership development and business management. And one thing I noticed fairly early on in horse riding is that there's a really strong parallel between being a responsible rider and horseman and being a responsible manager and leader in business. There is one slightly challenging parallel which you have to get over, which is around horses being perceived as stock animals or beasts of burden, and we don't want to treat people like that. But in reality, horses aren't like that. They're proud, passionate, and extremely intelligent animals. Most importantly, they are incredibly willing partners in work. And when you're clear about what you want, and when you take the reins with confidence and purpose, they'll do what they need to do for you. So my name's David Vincent. I'm the founder and director of Taking the Reins, which is a business coaching and management consulting firm. And our purpose is really to help leaders and businesses succeed by helping them take the reins of their business, being sure they've got a plan for what they want to achieve, knowing how to work with teams to achieve those goals, and being able to walk before they trot, before they canter, and before they jump, like I am there. And that's a photo of me on a horse called Maloo jumping. It feels like a huge jump, but when you look at it, there's only a couple of bars, but that's out in Yellingbo in the Yarra Valley. So you can see the Yarra Valley in the distance there. Now, just like every horse, every business is different. Every business comes with different natural skills and talents. Every business and every horse comes with a different history and set of experiences. And every horse and every business will progress through stages at different rates. But today, what I'm going to do is talk you through some very simple tools that I think will help you take the reins of your business, whether you're a sole trader, a small company, or a large business. I've worked with a really diverse group of clients since I set up my company 3 years ago. And I'll share some examples from across those businesses, but due to confidentiality, I'm not going to name any of those businesses. But the types of places I've worked in and supported have been a national medical services provider that was a non-profit, a very large insurance company based out of Queensland, a very large insurance company in South Australia, a local non-profit that supports local to Yellingbo and the Yarra Ranges, a non-profit that supports solutions for food insecurity, local government, disaster recovery network. I'm working with a tech startup that's building a solution for mapping sports and public spaces, a local tech company that's got some really amazing and very achievable growth ambitions, and a local horse riding stable, and an international software company that's provided a platform to manage horse riding stables, which brings me to why I'm actually here in California right now. I'm here on a 3-week trip, started in San Diego, heading up through LA, San Francisco, up to the Napa Valley, and I'm visiting 40 different riding stables in 3 weeks, which is an incredible opportunity to understand the horseback riding story over here in California, and I'm meeting some amazing people. So I'm getting lots more stories to share. But on with this, and on with the purpose of what I'm talking to you today, which is around taking the reins of your business. And the first thing to think about is, are you in business for the right reasons? It's quite often the hardest question that people have to ask themselves, but it is really critical that you're clear on why you're in business in the first place. From a riding perspective, it's critical when you're riding a horse that you know why you're riding in the first place, what your goals are, what you want to achieve, and whether and how realistic that might be. And let's be honest, at my age and being a latecomer to riding, it's incredibly unlikely I'm going to make the next Olympics in Australia or the next Olympics anywhere. But I'm really clear on what I want to get out of riding. It's about improving my ability. It's about living my passion. And I also know I'm unlikely to make money out of it. Over here in California, no one is claiming to make money out of horse riding. I've spoken to a polo pony breeder near Malibu, the LA Equestrian Center in Burbank, where they filmed the Pretty Woman polo scenes, and the San Diego Riding Academy. As I said, they all say there's no money in horses, but remarkably, they stay in business, and that's because they are clear on what they want to do and why they're doing it. But looking at business rather of general businesses rather than just horses, the first thing to think about is, when you're thinking about are you in it for the right reasons, is to be clear on what you and your team are good at doing. What's your abilities? And start working out how you can leverage that. The medical services organisation I worked with was exceptionally good at providing specialist and sensitive care to their patients. They're also very good at managing the politics that came with the sort of work they did and government funding issues. So they were really clear on their ability. But one thing they weren't clear about, or not so good at, was how to generate enough revenue, the big bucks. Not clear on how to generate enough revenue to cover their costs, or to manage their costs down in the most effective way. As a result, they called out for some business coaching support from me, and I helped them with improving their cost base through redesigning the organization and redesigning some business processes. So that helped them get across the A and the B. But that organization was also incredibly passionate about the work it did. Now, within that organization, they really needed to balance their passion with their abilities, but also main focus on the big bucks. So in this kind of 3-zone diagram here, what they found that they were doing was not spending enough time thinking about the money, spending too much time thinking about their passion and too much time thinking about their ability. And this is a really good way to think about your business and why you do it. If you only do the things you're enjoying and the things you're passionate about, that's not going to maintain an ongoing viable business. If that was a person, it would be someone like Peter Pan. In business, it is going to be someone that's kind of running a hobby and nothing else. On the other side, if you think you're only doing the things you're good at, because that's where you're skilled, but that might not raise revenue. If you're only doing the things that you're good at, and this is quite a problem I see quite often with leaders of small businesses, they tend to find themselves going back on the tools from time to time because they're really good at being on the tools, really good at doing the doing, and helping some of those leaders step up into managing the big bucks and the passion and the ability across the system of work is where a business coach can really help you to make sure that you're taking the reins. The trick is to understand how you can grow your team around you so that they can carry that load and they can make those big jumps whilst you're looking ahead to the next jump, looking ahead for the longer course and preparing yourself in the business for that. We all know also that there are a lot of organizations out there that do nothing other than focus on revenue and cutting costs. Every now and then, that's a critical activity. You may find yourself temporarily in that B zone where you're just focused on money. But if you spend too much time in there, you will end up in burnout and you will end up with conflicts with your values. I've worked in my career with a number of really big corporates, and it's kind of like the annual business planning process. They have this mantra of every year, cut costs by 10%, increase profit by 5%, cut costs. And that's this cycle that goes on. Works for a couple of years, but if that carries on going, it really ends up disheartening the workforce because you cannot continue to set those arbitrary figures. You do need to drive down costs. You do need to grow the business. But if you're always sticking with that 10 and 5, 10 and 5, you end up with quiet quitting, which I've seen happening in a lot of organizations before it became the latest buzzword coming out of post-COVID. So where you want to be in there is right in the middle. That's the sweet spot where the three things overlap. And a business coach can help you in a couple of ways. The easiest way the business coach can help you, though, is to help you understand where your abilities are, help you understand where their passion is, and make sure they're driving towards where revenue can come appropriately, because that then becomes more sustainable. Now, for that, of course, you need a plan. And this, I'm hoping, is going to be the simplest business plan you have ever seen. It's more than just a white slide. It's more than just a white piece of paper. We'll get to some graphics on there soon. There's very complicated business plans that are out there. They're onto multiple pages. And then people can spend an awful lot of time thinking about their plans. And in 20 years of running business planning in multinational organizations, what I've learned is that you only need to do as much planning as you can cope with actually putting into practice. And that's always a lot less than you think. I've got 10-year plans, 5-year plans, 3-year plans. In big business, they get worked on for months and months and months. Multiple people get involved and then they get put in a drawer and forgotten about until the next planning cycle. But someone in group strategy has earned their bonus for the year because they got the business plans done on time. Now, that doesn't work with horses, and it sure as hell doesn't work with running businesses. You need to have something that's simple and straightforward and something that is going to support you to be effective. So there's 5 things to think about here. The first one is, what do you need to keep an eye on? If it's on a horse, you need to understand what's happening with the horse that day. Did the horse come up from the paddock lane? Did it come up a bit sleepy and needs a bit more energy? So look around your business. Very quickly, you can look around your business and the work that you're doing and write down a list of the things that are going on right now, what you need to be aware of and what you need to be on top of. What's maybe coming up around the next bend on the horizon you need to prepare for, and think about what you're dealing with today. Then what you need to think through is, what are the big rocks? What are the 4 or 5 big rocks you need to focus on? It's probably worth reminding you about big rocks here. And the easiest way to do that is think of an empty jar and then think of all the important things in your life as the big rocks that need to fit in that jar. Then think of a kilo of sand and a kilo of pebbles. If you put the sand and the pebbles as those small things in the jar first, you'll never have the room for the big rocks. So the solution here is to put the big rocks in the jar first, and then you can fill up the gaps with the small, less important things. For us, some of those small and unimportant things that we have to do all the time is our zero reconciliation and our BAS statements. If you focus all your time on your BAS statements, you're not going to grow your business though. The next thing to think through, and this is where honesty is needed for each of those big rocks, is actually where are you right now and where do you need to be? What's the current reality of what's going on? Not what your hope's going on, but what's really going on. I've spent a lot of time in a very large company lately who thought that their low customer service standards were happening because they had too many new staff. I've mapped out their processes, and what I found was it's not the number of new staff they've got that's causing the problem. It's actually the decisions that they're making on their business on an ongoing basis that's causing problems in their customer service delivery chain. So a bit of coaching and some impartial support can really help you pinpoint where things are going wrong and understand what's happening. So once you know where you are and where you need to be, all you need to do, and this is the magic part, you don't need to plan out for the next 10 years, just plan out what does good look like next? What's the very next stage where you're going to feel comfortable that you've made some progress and some success? It could be where you'll be at the end of next month. It could be where you'll be at the end of next quarter. But importantly, it's just about where you need to be in the next step. We know from COVID that if you plan too far in advance, everything's going to get thrown up in the air. We live in a world that's called volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, and we are surrounded with things that change on us all the time. If you invest too much time in planning, what I know is that planning will be wasted because you'll never execute on those plans that you made for 3 years' time because your world would have changed. Listening to you earlier, Imam, about the 4 staff that you brought on in the time that you grew, you may not have planned to do that, but every time you do bring on a new staff member, it changes the whole society, changes the culture and the systems of work, and you really need to start adjusting to that. So plan for just the next step. Don't do 5-year plans, don't do 10-year plans. I'm putting lots of strategy people out of business by saying that. Just plan for the next step. And then what happens is that next month you do the same thing again and you plan for the next step, and then you plan for the next step. You can shift your direction much more easily that way. You know what the big rocks are, you know why you're in business, and you just focus on these are the steps for this month, because that's what the brain can focus on successfully. One important thing though is do keep an eye on those small rocks. Do keep an eye on business as usual. Do make sure that you don't forget to pay your bills or your BAS returns. They won't do them themselves, but don't fill up your jar with those activities. And that's the simplest business plan I hope you'll ever see. Very happy to send this out and share it with people after this. And my happy business plan means that I get to do really cool things like riding horses up to the top of LA. And that's actually by the Hollywood sign, which is one of the most touristy, trashy things you can do in California. But riding a horse to the Hollywood sign, I guess not many people have done that in their lives. Now, within your goals, you also need to, I'll spend just a few minutes talking about goal setting because I'm conscious that we only have 5 minutes left. Goal setting, everyone talks about SMART goal setting. What I want you to think through is that goals need to be more than just SMART. SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. But SMART isn't all it's cracked up to be. And I think there's an easy way to think about goals if you break it down into a couple of different categories. Performance goals is a really important thing in horse riding. Performance goals are about what are you doing at that moment, every single time, every single behavior that you're having that you're focused on to make sure you're doing those to the highest standard. So for me, it's about sitting with my posture straight. And I realize now that I'm slumping, so I'm sitting up nice and straight. I'm sitting my posture straight. And thank you, Darren. I saw you sit up too. It's sitting with your posture straight and relaxed. And in business, it can be a simple performance goal, like every time you have a new business lead, you follow it up with an email to thank them for their time and create that new connection. Every time you make one connection, you pass that connection on to someone else. They're the performance goals, the behavioral things that you can track on an ongoing basis that drive really successful habits. They don't necessarily mean that you get a number, but they're the behaviors that help you get to those numbers and those targets. And they're the short-term activities which connect to the performance goals. In riding, it's about making sure I exercise my horse regularly each week, make sure he's got his shoes refitted, making sure he gets his massage every quarter, he gets looked after a lot better than I do, it seems. But those patterns of activities that happen every day, every week, every month, mean that I'm in the best condition and my horse is in the best condition to reach what are called performance goals and outcome goals. So the outcome goals are going to be the numbers that you'll measure. They're the dollar revenue that you expect to get. That's the profit margin that you expect to receive at the end of the year. If you set yourself a goal for a profit margin, you can't manage to a profit margin because there are multiple other factors that come around in your life. There's costs that go up, there's clients that don't pay, there's more clients that come in, there's new expenses that occur. But if you've got the short-term activities and your performance goals in line, then your outcome goals will end up getting achieved, and then you will be successful with those elements. And finally, there are the long-term outcomes. So these are the quarterly and annual goals. And I did put in here a 3 to 5 year plan and a 5 to 10 year strategy. I'd rather say, rather than having a 5-year strategy, you have a 5-year ambition. So yeah, my ambition, and I'm working with a couple of companies right now. One of them, their ambition is to increase their company from $2 million turnover to $20 million turnover in 10 years. And that's their strategy. And their strategy is to be the largest provider of technology services supports in outer East Melbourne. And they will get there by having that clear vision and by taking these few steps. And that brings you to happiness. That brings you to owning a horse. That brings you to having your own horse that you can play with and love very much. And the last thing that I'll share with you then is putting it all together. And putting it all together is just one piece of paper. It couldn't be any easier than that. You've thought about big rocks. Big rocks can be things like launching a new product, could be setting up a website, could be running a sales campaign. Within all of those big rocks, there are going to be performance goals to track this month and next month. There will be activities to track this month and next month. And there will be short-term goals and outcome goals that will fall in. And this is the plan. All you need to do is fill in this plan and say, for this month, for launching the new product, these are the activities that I'll complete. For next month, these are the activities I'll complete. And the third month, these are the activities. Fill that in, do that every month, and you'll be planned before you know it. And you can do this in a couple of hours. The trick about it is that you don't spend 3 days doing a business plan and feel stressed, because that's one of the most stressful situations I see people in, trying to work out what to do. Sit down with a business coach, sit down with your friends, sit down with your business partner and talk about where you are now. Where do you need to be just next month in order to achieve your long-term vision and mission? Just where do you need to be the next month? What do you need to do to bring that to life? And focus on those shorter term steps, because that's where your activity is going to be much more successful for you in leading the business. In a riding stable, in a riding place, that means you spend less time in the stable and more time in the saddle. And that means you're doing the things that you love, doing the things that you're good at. And for me, quite luckily now, I'm earning revenue because I'm out here in California. I'm spending my time in horse ranches. I'm earning money from the things I'm passionate about and the things I'm good at doing. And that, my friends, is how to take the reins of your business. Thank you very much. Any questions?